I'll say hi. Okay, everybody. Hello. I'm going to wait for some of you all to arrive. I'm so excited to have this conversation tonight. Um, Brittany, feel free to retweet us onto your stream as we are getting ready to have our discussion. It's kind of a big night. They just found out that infrastructure will be voted on first,
Mhm.
then BBB, but no BBB itself today. It seems that, hi, says Facebook user. It seems that the moderates and progressives still clashing. Such is our state of politics
Yeah.
today. So let's see. We're going to get started here. I'm just making sure everything looks good online. It's weird using my computer and I'm using my phone at the same time.
No,
Okay, I can see it. Okay, it looks good. Okay, hi everybody. I'm glad people are starting to join. This is really exciting for me because I have been following Brittany for a while, and you know, running for Congress is no joke. So I thought it would be good for both of us to get together and kind of talk about this experience of what we've been going through, how we've been tackling issues, why we decided to do this thing in the first place. So first, I want you to introduce yourself and what district you're running in, and then we'll go from there.
sure. So thank you so much, Maya, for inviting me to be a part of this. I've been following you as well for quite some time. You're such an inspiration to me and so many other women around the country. Hi, everyone. My name is Brittany Oliver. I am running for Congress in Maryland's 2nd Congressional District. To tell you all a little bit about myself, I am by profession a PR and communications expert and freelancer. I have been doing this work in particular for over 10 years. Outside of my professional work, I am a community organizer and a policy advocate, and also have been doing that for quite some time. A lot of people would ask, how did I get started in this work? When I was 14 years old, I actually petitioned my high school to offer African American history courses after I was told that they were only printed in the books to make the school look diverse, but they didn't actually offer the classes for me to take. That wasn't okay with me. So I
Mm.
set out, got a petition drawn, and got support to actually get the class taught. And so that was one of my very first actions, in wanting to see an issue go forward, particularly around African Americans. And so from there, I've kind of have been involved in community. I have always had empathy, understood systemic issues, both internal in community and external. And I have done a number of, or have held actually, a number of leadership roles. I'm the former co-director of Hollaback Baltimore, the Younger Women's Task Force. I could go on and go to my website, learn more about me. Very involved, and just decided that this was the time to stand up to make a difference. And I've been also inspired by, again, a number of women like Maya and many others who decided to do the same. So I'm very excited to be speaking with you. Thank you so much again for the invite.
Of course. And so we can obviously hear you've been an advocate since the beginning of your life. I think that is very true for many Black women right out of the gate. It's like, wait, something is not correct here. I think I need to fix this. Um, you and I, something that we have in common is that we were both big Kamala Harris supporters. And during her presidential run, there was a lot of misogynoir that came from the press, that spilled over online. A lot of it was disinformation, a lot of it was trolls, but there were some issues there. One issue that I had in particular was with a couple of media people, and I called them out. I basically said, "Listen," one said, she only raised $12 million
Mhm.
compared to Pete Buttigieg, who raised 8. Why can't she raise more money? And I said, you really have no clue about what it's like to run for office as a Black woman and to raise that type of money. $12 million is quite a lot of money. And I think it was just for one quarter. So it was a lot of money. Um, so I know that I was proud to support her, and you were too. Is she one of the reasons why you thought about throwing your hat in the ring too?
Absolutely. So there were quite a few, I think, factors that went into making my decision to wanting to run for office. I can definitely say that Kamala Harris throwing her hat in the ring was one of those reasons. I also experienced, a lot of misogynist attacks for supporting Kamala Harris.
Mm.
And but I don't regret at all the support that I try to kind of build for her here. Her being the being a woman in the race, being a woman of color, uh, you know, of a various background, and just her story inspired me. Her story inspired women around the country, and so for those who got it, they got it, and we roll with it.
Mhm.
And look, we saw what happened in the beginning of the race. The candidates of color eventually dropped out, right?
Mhm.
So we know that fundraising is an issue, and it was definitely an issue for her. But what I will say is that when she runs for president, I'm going to be right there knocking every door in Baltimore County and in my entire district for her. So,
Yes. Same, same. And one of the things that I also noticed, there was this fallacy of like the perfect candidate.
right.
We heard that even during Hillary Clinton, I would vote for a woman, just not her.
Yeah.
Then we heard that again with Kamala Harris. I would vote for a woman, but just not her. So I was like, so there's just not women you're going to vote for. And then you do see that with Black women, it is twice as tough on that judgment, because there will be plenty of other candidates that had a lot of more problematic issues. No candidate is perfect, but I noticed that they were harder on Kamala than they were across the board with other candidates. So I think that's one of the reasons why I wanted to not just to support her, but to kind of point out some of the hypocrisy around that. I want to know about your district in Maryland. I want to know about one of the things that inspires you to want to represent it, some of the main issues that are in your district, and then I'll be happy to share mine as well.
Sure. So Maryland's second congressional district, and yeah, I think a really important fact for me to bring up is that Maryland specifically has been named as one of the top states, on the DMV in the DMV area to be the most diverse. And so that study came out in August, and I think that that's reflective of a lot of the issues of what it pertains to my district specifically. Over the years, my congressman, he has been in his seat for quite some time, as a lot of politicians, typically are in their seats for years, sometimes even decades. And
Mm-hmm.
so, what it was, 10, 20 years ago is what it was. But now we are fast forwarding to 2021, going to 2022, and I represent what the district needs at the moment. Our district has been incredibly hit by the pandemic, as other communities across the country. We have a serious lack of jobs. We have a lack of healthcare, clean air, water. Maryland sits at the Chesapeake Bay, and so we need to go in a direction where the country is going, and Congress needs to represent where we are going. And so that's one of the things that I always say is that I really I appreciate what's been done so far, but we have more women running. We have more people of color running. We have more people who come from non-traditional backgrounds who are running for office. That's a good thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like
Mm-hmm.
to see that those nuances and our stories and people stepping up, that's a good thing. That should be celebrated
Yeah.
by the party. It should be celebrated by communities and everyone who knows that we need more representation. We need diverse representation you know, at Congress on this level. And so it's one of the reasons why I decided to run. We right now are going through redistricting, which is,
Yeah.
it's complicated. But my campaign, myself and my campaign, we are monitoring what is going on and what's happening in terms of where those lines are going to be drawn. And, we are going to be prepared and ready for whatever comes out of that. Right. So that's just a little bit, but I would love to hear about, what's going on where you live.
Yeah, we're actually going through redistricting as the rest of the country is. I'm excited for redistricting, honestly. It's always a little painful because, you lose parts of your district that you really love. But I mean, I love all of New York, and I've lived, as a friend of mine said, I've lived in every square inch of New York City. So I'm happy to represent New York in that way. New York has had some of the same issues now that it had 30 years ago when my representative first ran. And to me, that's problematic. To me, it's saying that we're still ignoring those that are the closest to the harm, and we're not prioritizing them through policy.
Mm-hmm.
We have environmental issues that are very much rooted in environmental racism.
Right.
We have lead in the walls in some of our public housing. We have issues with water here. We have issues with the internet accessibility and affordability. We have issues with accessibility as far as transportation and no roads. We have at least 8,000 children in my district that don't know where their next meal is coming from. They're dealing with food insecurity. The same amount of people that were in poverty 30 years ago, same number.
Right.
So to me, it gets really frustrating. And I know that some people said, well, no, the number of people in the district has improved with poverty. I said, no, it hasn't.
Right.
These are people that have moved out of the district because they can no longer afford to be here. Yeah. So to me, it comes down to the fact of we do need to update the resume of who belongs in Congress. I think this idea that you elect representatives in one way has to go. That has to be an idea of the past. We have to have people that have new blood, new ideas, new enthusiasm, and have different perspectives on how these issues can be addressed. I think right now, what I think has been good for the person that I'm challenging is that she's woken up because in the last couple of years, like she didn't sign the Crown Act beforehand, which is, would help to stop discrimination against Black hair. And I had a discrimination issue on a television show that I worked on. They wanted my hair to not be so big and so natural. And that Crown Act would have protected me against that. She didn't sign it, but then all of a sudden she did. In the last 2 years, she has started signing anything that is associated with Black or Latino people because she's recognizing that has been something that has been neglected. So to me, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to run. I started seeing where there was weakness in that. And also we can see too, I think with Virginia, I know a lot of people were saying, listen, I don't want to focus on Virginia. We won in New Jersey. We had a great win in Ohio. And I agree. I'm so happy to see Shontel Brown win. Yeah. I want us to join Shontel in 2022. But for Virginia to have been won by a racist campaign,
right.
When Democrats are the ones that are strong on education and they ran on a racist campaign that was targeted towards education, to me shows that there has to be a stronger response from Democrats, which means I think that you need to have stronger Democrats with better messaging in Congress. So that's one of the reasons why I decided to run. Now, I would love to know you talked a little bit about some policies, but I would love to drill down on one or two policies that you either support that's happening in Congress now, or one or two that you would like to do when you get into Congress, or what is your kind of central message that you feel of your campaign?
Sure. So I think with my district, and just like many districts across, so when we talk about things around jobs, healthcare, education, and many other issues, I think that we show up in different ways. People who run for office can show up in different ways when they actually have had the background, the experience of what it's like to face inequities, for these issues, right? So that means that the way we show up on these issues look different compared to someone who has had a different experience. And when, as you stated earlier, when we have those same experience, we have the same person in the same seat for so long, that is what prohibits change, right? So I think that what makes me really excited to want to do this work is that I have been there. I know what it's like to not have a job. I know what it's like to not have health care. I know what it's like to be struggling with education and not having adequate air conditioning and heat and supplies, right? But also what I can say, some of the most specific issues that I think, and this is based off of we're in the pandemic. It's here. We have seen people struggle. I live in my district. I am here every single day. I know who is not getting care. I know the people who are struggling. I talk to these people. These are people I actually I'm in community with, right? That's a huge difference from a typical politician who does not have any everyday day-to-day action with living in the district and experiencing the challenges, right, and the struggles that we're facing. I think that from the pandemic, especially with the amount of people who have lost their jobs, the increase in unemployment, I would love to see the federal jobs guarantee be passed, and that is something that I'm very, very passionate about, because it provides more jobs and opportunities for the community. Another issue that I think that makes me very unique in terms of this race, specifically for my district, is I am also a women's rights activist, and I have been for a very, very long time. One of the reasons that drew me to supporting Kamala Harris is her work on women's rights, and how she is very, very much, no nonsense when it comes to supporting women and girls through gender justice. That has always been a passion of mine. So the hide a minute, closing the boyfriend loophole, all the funding, the ending of rape kits locally, nationally, is something that really gets me on fire. And so those are issues I can tell you in this district and in the state of Maryland that are being ignored. We can do better. And I decided to run because I know that we can do better.
I love that. And one of the things that Kamala had proposed while she was running for president was helping to do loan forgiveness for those who had gotten Pell Grants.
Yes, you did.
And I was interviewed for a magazine about it. I explained why this piece of policy was really exciting. I was a recipient of a Pell Grant. And the woman wrote, "We found 2 whole women that would benefit from this policy," which means they fundamentally didn't understand who gets Pell Grants, which is people that live below the poverty line, and why we end up keeping the amount of student loans in our life longer, more loans for a longer amount of time. That would have been hugely energizing, would have helped the economy, would have, So to me, I felt that her policies were very specific. And to me, the media didn't understand them. And it's honestly their job to figure them out and explain them to the public. But to me, so I was passionate about that. And I will say specifically for my area, in New York, we've had a lot of restaurant closures. I spent my entire life working in the service industry from the time I was 14 when I got my first job at Fishland in Boston. And working in coffee shops. I did dishes at Melting Pot. I did service industry. I mean, like every restaurant, I worked there. And a lot of people that work in the service industry, especially in New York City, work in the creative industry as well. It's the way to supplement income. And our economy in New York, about 20 to 25% of our economy is the creative industry. And it was really decimated along with the service industry during COVID. And so to me, we had to drill down on specific policies that would aid the service industry, that also aids the creative industry. I would like to see another federal arts program. Now, I know that there are 2 people in Congress right now that are trying to propose a policy like that. They're not artists. I'm come from 4 generations of artists. They don't understand what actually is needed by artists. I don't think they're asking So to me, as a New Yorker, it's incredibly important. I mean, and artists live everywhere. They live in your district, they live in my district. It's so critical to take care of them in a way that when the next recession hits or the next pandemic hits, that people aren't left out in the cold again and lose their livelihood. And right now, there are more artists now than when the original federal arts program came around in the 1940s after World War II, after the recession. So this one could be even more beneficial, not just to artists, but to our economy.
Right.
So that's something that I'm incredibly passionate about. I would be the first working artist to serve on the Congressional Arts Caucus in Congress. I mean, I think that you should have an artist on your arts caucuses. I don't know. So is there a committee in particular that you would like to that you've thought about that you would like to be on? I mean,
Yeah.
It's not exactly our choice of like as a freshman, but is there one that you've thought about that you'd like to be on?
Honestly, I've been taking some time to think about this. I would be thankful and incredibly honored to be on any committee that I know that I would be able to do a great job in based off my background. Any committee that I would be assigned to, I would bring nothing but accountability, honesty, and integrity. So that's kind of what I'll say to that. I'm excited about the idea to join any committee that would allow me to be able to do what I do best, and that means bring justice to the issue.
Oh, I love that. I do have a pick that I'd like. I'd like to be on the small business committee just because I will honestly say it gets a bad rap because they're just like, oh, that's not the glamour committee. I'm like, I'm not coming in here for the glamour. I'm coming in to kind of help small businesses. And a lot of these restaurants and bars that were decimated would be benefited by someone like a New Yorker being on a small business committee. Actually, Nadia Velasquez, who's in the congressional district over from mine, she's the head of it. It would also help artists. I'd like to see artists themselves become their own small businesses. And I find that there could be creative ways of doing that. So to me, I think you and I both definitely would be excited to be on any of them, but if I had my pick. So I wanted to say there was a report in Higher Heights that came out and I shared it with you. And it was pretty shocking. I don't think you and I were surprised, but I was pretty shocked by the numbers. Right. It basically had Black women at the bottom for fundraising by almost $500,000 less than any other group of women, any other demographic of women. What have you seen? What have you felt has been a challenge with fundraising, and what has worked for you?
Sure. So here's what I'll say when it comes to the fundraising piece, and after reading that report. So not only am I fundraising, in addition to that, I am also making calls to women, Black women in particular, who have run for office before across the country. I've talked to and have consulted with many, many women. And based off of the responses that I've received so far is the reason why I was not surprised when I read that report. Because I was able to hear from the people who are directly impacted by this issue. I think that there are a lot of barriers that, and we know, you and I both know, and the folks who are, following know that there are a lot of barriers to fundraising. What I can say for myself specifically is that the barriers has generally have been is that because I don't come from a rich background, that somehow this is not possible for me.
Yeah.
And I have to do a lot of using a lot of persuasive tactics and using, that includes telling my story and just a lot of like gentle back and forth to convince people of why people like me should run, and undoing a lot of those negative stereotypes about what it means for people like us to run for office. I've had to do a lot of labor around that in my fundraising. What I can say that has worked is those moments when I'm able to really connect with the individual on the other line. And I can credit the fact that I've been working in PR, public relations, which the core of my job is building relationships. If that's one
Mm-hmm.
thing I know how to do, is I know how to build a relationship, and I know how to communicate with various types of people, no matter who they are.
Yeah.
And so I think that that skill that I've used, that I've had in my day-to-day profession, I've been able to take that and apply that to my fundraising plan and tactics, and how I talk to people and getting them to say, hey, look, I need people like you to
Mm-hmm.
help me get there. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I got to go through a primary, but like in order for you to see people like me in Congress, is the primary is one of the most important moments
Yeah.
for me. Don't you want to be a part of that? So applying those skills that I've always had has been one of the many tactics that I've used, but I have had to do a lot of labor around trying to convince people that I am worthy of running for office. How
Yeah.
about you?
So it's interesting. For me, one of the things I knew would be an obstacle is that I definitely do not come from wealth. Like, not even close. I've actually never worked a wealthy job either. So sometimes if you work around wealthy people, that also helps. Um, I really did see how that does make a difference when you're running, because you can't just like pull out, your phone contacts and just be like, hey, John, Jerry, Jeff, whatever, Justina, will you go ahead and send me $2,900 because we work together and I know you got it, right?
Right.
I will say what has worked for me is when I know someone does have money,
Yeah.
I do ask them to give me the maximum.
Hmm.
I'm just like, listen, I know that you won't be able to take that extra day on vacation, but you would be supporting policy and making things better,
Right.
and I have been able to approach people with humor about it and
Yeah.
things like that. Because I think for a lot of people, especially the ones that have a lot of money, they are really uncomfortable
Right.
about kind of giving up that money. And I will say that sometimes with wealthier donors, it's taken 2 or 3 times just to have a phone call with them, and then
Hmm.
another 2 or 3 times with an email, and then another. So I probably would follow up about 10 times to get the person to max out. I'm happy to do it because I have lots of friends and lots of people in my community that I don't want to ask them for a dollar.
Right.
I have friends in my community that can't afford to get their teeth fixed right now, that are really struggling to get by on their pension. They're struggling to get by. I don't feel comfortable asking them for money, and I know that part of running for office is that you're supposed to be like, listen, you look at it as an investment, taking every dollar that you can. And I don't look at it like that when it comes to people that are
Right.
struggling. To
Right.
me, I'm like, that is where my line is. And I think that also does make it a little bit harder when you're running for office if you have your line of values and
Right.
morals,
Right.
So I think that's where mine is. I think that I was happy about the money that I raised in this last quarter, in the sense that, I think AOC raised that amount of money in 3 months. I was able to raise it within 1 month.
Right.
But for New York media, that's not really exciting for them. They want to see at least high six figures. They want to see that as something that is, that you are then a valid candidate, But to me, I'm not letting that get in my way. I'm continuing to fundraise dollar by dollar. And to me, it's just as important for me to get out there and talk to people. I would like to get elected just to do
Right.
finance reform,
Right.
real election campaign finance reform, because this is it's obscene to try to raise $1 million, and
Mhm.
for all 435 candidates to run, plus the people that are running, that might be running against them, plus 1/3 of the Senate every 2 years. We're
Right.
talking billions of dollars we're asking citizens to donate to people that they then pay $165,000 a year in tax money.
Right.
To me, that's really obscene, and I want people to talk about it. I'm actually surprised that more people in Congress don't talk about it. It seems that they stop talking about it once they get there, but I
Mhm.
would like not I would like to talk about it because one, I do know that once you get into Congress, you don't stop fundraising,
Right.
and it ends up taking you away from constituent services. And to me, that's the constituent services. Besides trying to get a bill to the floor, or drafting policy, that's the most important part of the job.
Hmm.
So we have to do campaign finance reform in order to change that, you know. So I want to ask you this. What is, and feel free to keep talking about money if you'd like, because we can talk about that all day long. But I would love to know, what do you do to kind of like take care of yourself
Yeah.
during the campaign? Because I mean, this can be 14, 16-hour days.
Absolutely. No, that's a great question. So, I am a huge proponent of women, especially women of color, Black women practicing self care. And I mean by all means necessary, whether you're running a campaign, whether you're working, dealing with family, my self care comes first. And so what I do a number of things. I am very much of a nature person. I go hiking a lot, and I have uh, friends who kind of know how to say, "Okay, Brittany, it's time for you to come out to. We need to go hiking. You're tripping. We need to go. Let's go hiking. Let's go to the lake, to the river, so that you can start over."
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I have my close friends who keep me accountable that way. I very much am into fitness. I work out a lot. Specifically, I got into CrossFit about a year
Oh,
ago.
that's awesome.
I journal. I write my thoughts down a lot, and how I'm thinking, how I'm feeling. Every morning, I have a routine. I get up. Actually get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and start my day.
Amazing.
And then also, I'll say that during the pandemic, I became a plant mom. So I have a ton of house plants
Yay.
everywhere, and just taking care of my plants has been my thing. How about you?
So, my plants are all cactuses because I like to think about watering my plants as little as possible, and they flourish. That's what's great about being, I'm a cactus parent then, because they're great. And I'm also from the desert, from New Mexico, so originally, so I know how to take
Oh,
care of that.
okay.
During the pandemic, when I knew New York was going to go on lockdown,
Hmm.
about a day or two before, I got a Peloton. I put it on layaway. It's here in my house. I got this. I could get it. And honestly, I bike every single day. It's very rare if I don't bike. I take a good 30 to 40 minutes to bike. I think that's so important. It helps me sleep better. I
Yeah.
will say my sleep has been more disrupted during
Mm-hmm.
this cycle. It's
Mm-hmm.
because I'm usually thinking about a conversation I have with somebody, or,
Right.
or a meeting that I need to have with somebody else, or put something together. I value my sleep,
Yeah.
so I make sure that I try to relax and meditate before I go to bed. In that way, I'm actually a practicing Zen Buddhist, which is just a
Wow.
philosophy. I mean, it's
Yeah.
it's more of a meditation than a religion. Some Buddhism is religion. Zen Buddhism is a meditation.
Right.
So that's just breathing techniques and exercises, and that actually helps me get some sleep. Um, and then honestly, like, I'm somebody that is really goofy and silly and like love to laugh, and I don't take my I there's moments where I take myself seriously during this process, and then some of it I just have to laugh because some of it is just so absurd, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So I think keeping the humor up, and I think it's obviously you do too, and
Yes.
is, you know, it's critical. It's
Hmm.
critical to have a sense of humor about this, because it is a tough thing to do. But I really, I'm so thrilled that you're running. I know that you would be great for your district and for your future constituents. Um, I would love for you to. I wanted to address one more thing, and then we'll wrap it up. But I was also saying that there's also this culture that's happening in Capitol Hill too, where a lot of Black staffers have been quitting. And to me, this is not separate from the office, running for office. You posted the article, I read it and shared it as well. This seems kind of, I mean, this is troublesome. you know. What were some of your thoughts about that article about the staffers leaving?
Yeah. So what I can say is that, yeah, I shared it. I have a tremendous amount of respect for people who work on Capitol Hill. I worked on Capitol Hill a little bit advocating for the Women's Health Protection Act in my own capacity, and as well as during the Kavanaugh hearings when all that took place. Actually, is when one of the first times I heard Kamala Harris speak, and I fell in love with her.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Supported survivors. But so I think it's I've read about these experiences before. So what we saw, what we've read about what's been happening now, it's not new, and it just lets me know that it's still an issue. And I know that most recently, leader Nancy Pelosi actually increased, I believe, salaries for
Yeah.
certain individuals depending on the staff. But we really got to address this issue with black members or staffers and staffers of color on Capitol Hill, because I mean, I was doing the work that I did for the time that I did it for, but I can't even imagine of what they're dealing with, and it's real because we've
Yeah.
seen it in other spaces too. Not only does it happen in Capitol Hill, it's happened at nonprofits, it's happened at for-profit organizations, all whether you work in the restaurant industry or you work in a library, we've seen it happen everywhere. We have got to address this. And honestly, it is something, when I am elected, it is something that I want to help bring awareness to, because this is 2021. We should not, there's no reason why we should continue to be seeing these inequities happening at that level. It's just ridiculous.
It's problematic for so many reasons, and one of the reasons is that working on the Hill gets you experience. It's something to put on your resume. It's a way to make connections. It's a way to build wealth. And when you're denied that because you can't afford to be in Washington, D.C., we know that Washington, D.C. is prohibitively expensive. And so while she had raised some salaries, not the rest. And some of these salaries are 25,000 or 30,000 a year. And, that's the average salary that something like I would make at a restaurant. But if you're working on Capitol Hill, I think that this money has to be higher. And then if you have internships that don't come with money at all, then you're cutting out an entire population of people that are like, well, I can't afford not to have money. Right. And then that means it's going to go to people that are connected to wealthy families and to big schools. And so to me, this has to change. I think that there could be money that can be found to make sure that we are retaining Black staffers across the Hill, and also I would encourage, more people to hire Black staffers, and not just like, I mean, I also saw that like the Congressional Black Caucus, they're the ones that are hiring Black staff. When I went to Washington, D.C., I gave a clinic to some Senate staffers. I just echoed there. Why am I echoing?
You sound okay to me.
Okay, I just echoed for 1 second. Okay, I gave a clinic. I guess my phone wanted everyone to know that it was, this is a big thing.
Yes.
I was in DC. I gave a clinic to some senators' staffers to kind of talk about narratives. And in the room, this is when Doug Jones was briefly senator. He was the only one with Black staffers besides Cory Booker. And I looked around the room, and I was just like, this is very interesting to me that, why aren't other white senators hiring a diverse staff? So to me, it's one of those things, once again, it's not that someone's necessarily doing that on purpose. It's because it's out of sight, out of mind for them. Right. This is one of the reasons we are running, by the way. Lauren Underwood said something really wonderful. She was featured in a magazine article in Chicago. And she said, a lot of people think that that in Congress, we deal with the most important issues of the day. That's not totally true. Your congressperson, your congressional representative is the one that's coming in and bringing in the important issues that they feel are important issues that need to be brought up. So
Mhm.
if our representatives aren't seeing that as an issue, if they're not seeing environmental racism, if they're not seeing food insecurity and housing insecurity and on and on and on, then these things may not get addressed. So
Right.
I think that's why we're running. What would you like to leave the audience with? Like, I would like people to know, like, how could they help support you? What is the thing that you need? And be very blunt about it.
Absolutely. No, this was wonderful, and one way that people can support my campaign is by going to www.brittanyformaryland.com. That is FOR, BrittanyForMaryland.com. And please donate, because as we've talked about in this program this evening, is that, women of color, Black women, we have huge discrepancies when it comes to fundraising. And the more we can fundraise, the more we can get our name out, the more we can get the word about what we're trying to do. And it's going to take people like you all to help us get there. So that is the best way to help me. And feel free to reach out seeking volunteers and all kinds of and levels of support. So
I love that. And I will also say that I think that people feel like, well, this is the most Black representation we've ever had in Congress before. But I want people to understand that that is really nothing. We have been a country for quite a while now, and Chantel Brown became the 48th Black
yes.
woman
Hmm.
ever to be
Right.
elected to Congress. 48,
Right.
48 white men were already in, like, right off the bat. So to me,
Right.
I'm just like, you all do not understand that this representation is still too low, and that
Right.
Black women need to be elected in larger numbers for a host of reasons. Like, one of the things is discussing childcare, or
Right.
difficulties with childbirth and health and weathering, and just a host of other things that, again, with the Crown Act and things like that. But just a ton of other reasons of why that representation has to be there. I mean, again, like Lauren Underwood, hers as a nurse, she's talking
Right.
about insulin and things like that,
Hmm.
like issues that are really that that person deeply cares about. So please support Brittany's campaign, and then I'll post her link underneath this. I want you all to support my campaign. I'm very blunt about that. I want every one of you to give as much money as possible to the both of us, so that we can do what we want to do, which is go and talk to people. Because the
Right.
main thing we want to do is go out and have conversations with the
Right.
public. And unfortunately, so much of our time has to be spent talking on phones and
Yep.
hosting events and parties and things like this to try to raise money. Have you gotten your posters yet, by the way?
The posters are on the way, and so
Yay!
yeah, the more we have, more people we like again have, people donating and supporting. And I also want to leave with this and say that, look, when you support Black women, you support the entire nation. Everything changes when you support Black women. Okay, you heard it. You heard it from us.
I'm co-signing. I'm just co-signing all that. Well, it was so great talking to you. We will see each other on the internet, and then hopefully we'll see each other in person. I would love nothing more than to help go and canvas for you as well. We could do like an exchange. You come to New York for a day, go to Maryland for a
Yes.
day. I'd love to do it.
I am totally down. I will strap up my chucks any day to knock doors for you. So
Yes, same, same, same. All right, enjoy your Friday night, everyone. Bye.
bye everybody. Thank
Bye.
you.